Good morning, everybody, and welcome on. We are so excited to have you here today for an awesome presentation and demo. We are just going to give everybody a few minutes to filter in to this demo and get situated. Just take a few moments and we will be back and ready to go when everybody is into the webinar in about 3 minutes. Take a moment to grab some water, coffee, whatever you're feeling, and we will be right back. If you are just joining, we're just giving everybody about 1 more minute to get situated while we make sure everybody is here. Just hang tight for 1 more minute. All right, it looks like we are all here and ready to go. So thank you again, everybody, for coming on today. We are so excited to have you here on this presentation on breach and attack simulation. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the amazing Jim Mason.
Thank you, Madison. I'm Jim Mason, Senior Sales Engineer with AttackIQ. Today, you'll receive an overview of the AttackIQ Security Optimization Platform and how you can use it as part of your breach and attack simulation program to test your security controls. Threats are everywhere from all types of APTs and actors all over the world. So how can you be sure that the antivirus, endpoint detection response, next-gen firewalls, content filtering, and everything else you've bought and deployed can withstand these threats? The answer is breach and attack simulation. Breach and attack simulation with AttackIQ automates your security control testing, so you can test more accurately, more often, and at scale. This enables organizations to measure the effectiveness of their security solutions and receive guidance on how to fix what's broken before an attacker can take advantage. So now we'll cover some basics of BAS. Before breach and attack simulation solutions existed, there were plenty of organizations implementing, or at least partially implementing, security controls validation. This work was originally done through manual activities where your red teams and blue teams would work together to improve the security posture. These efforts have become known as purple teaming. And while getting more popular, breach and attack simulation tools can be used to help with some of the deficiencies of a manual process. Here are some of the benefits of automating your testing. The first is time and FTEs. Red team members are generally highly skilled individuals whose time could be better spent innovating instead of running scripts and building reports. Coordination and sharing of information between red and blue teams consumes time, and that could better be spent implementing projects and defending the enterprise. The second is documentation. Documentation during manual efforts is often lacking because of the time commitment or lack of resources to document what was done, how it was done, when it was done, and even by who. The third is safety. Without tight collaboration or understanding between red and blue teams on what exercises are run by who, against what assets, and when the idea of testing the security of your network begins to feel more like a liability rather than an asset. Now, we'll talk about breach and attack simulation as a way to operationalize and take a lot of the manual work out of implementing a threat-informed defense. The general idea between breach and attack simulation tools is similar. The organizations can choose attacker behaviors they want to see executed in their environment. The BAS tools execute those behaviors or emulations. Then operators observe the response from their security controls. Now, how these ideas are implemented and additional features provided vary from vendor to vendor, along with the BAS test transparency, which can also vary from solution to solution. So there's generally three ways of approaching this. The first is a black box approach, which leaves little visibility to the operator. It provides limited testing flexibility, although it is uncomplicated. So you can get off to a fast start. However, some organizations may find the lack of detail offered by a black box approach to be limiting. The next is a glass box approach, which is more open than a black box approach. With glass box, operators can view details of how tests are run. They can get a deeper understanding and in some cases make changes to the configuration of how tests are executed. An example of a glass box approach would be packet capture replay or PCAP. In this case, you are able to see the traffic being used as part of the test, but there's little to no customization available. The third is an open box approach, which is similar to a glass box approach. However, the source code of the test is made available to the operators. This allows for full transparency and customization of how tests are executed, which provides a ton of flexibility. AttackIQ Security Testing Platform falls in this category. So next we'll cover the AttackIQ architecture. This diagram shows the deployment architecture, which consists of the AttackIQ management platform, assets, which are also known as test points, and the integration manager. The platform can be reached using a web browser over TLS 443. All product functionality can also be accessed via API for advanced users. So if there are people in your environment that wish to do things programmatically, they can definitely do that. The AttackIQ platform itself can be deployed a number of ways. It can be deployed as a managed SaaS cloud, on-prem virtual appliance via an OVA file. We also support air-gapped OVA, and via Amazon Machine Image or AMI if you have an AWS environment. You can get started very quickly with AttackIQ. You'll design or designate devices or assets in your environment to install a very lightweight piece of software. We call it an agent, but it is not like a typical agent for, let's say, AV or EDR. This agent runs in stealth mode. It does not hook into the kernel, has a very low memory and CPU footprint, and it executes what we call assessments without disrupting the workflow of the host systems or servers that it's sitting on. We have 3 versions of the agent today, supporting various versions of Windows, desktop, and server, multiple versions of Mac OS, along with Linux distros. And AttackIQ Engineering has also created an agent configuration file for use in Docker containers. Now, these AttackIQ assessments consist of tests. Those tests contain scenarios. What a scenario is a Python script that mimics attacker activities, tactics, MITRE-based techniques, and so on. And that's how you validate your security controls. The last component of the architecture is the integration manager. This communicates to your third-party security technologies, so things that you may have as part of your security stack via their native APIs. It can send details of all AttackIQ assessment and scenario activity to on-premise security infrastructure. It can also execute queries of security technologies to verify the response or presence of alarms, alerts, or logs to validate your security pipeline. So for example, if we run an assessment and it contains a scenario where we're trying to drop ransomware to disk to exercise the EDR. If the EDR detects or stops that, there should be a log. If the EDR solution is configured to do that, do we see that? Additionally, if your EDR solution is configured to send that log to your SIEM, let's say Logarithm, Splunk, or QRadar, is that happening? This gives you the ability, again, to validate your security pipeline, which is a handy bit of information to have. Lastly, the integration manager will send that information as it relates to AttackIQ scenarios that have been executed to the AttackIQ platform. So you can view that as you're going through your results. Next, we'll take a look at this in action. Note that AttackIQ does recommend testing in production because you can do it safely with AttackIQ. Our credo is do no harm, and we operate strictly to that. Additionally, that's where real attackers are going to strike. They're not trying to hit you in your perfect, pristine labs where everything is under control. They actually want to, of course, compromise real computers, real users, and then move on from there. So in this demo, you'll see us using our VLANs 18 and 23. These are production networks for the demo. 2 assets are equipped to run assessments. We'll tour the AttackIQ management interface and how you can utilize the platform's features. Then we'll show you this scenario and the assessment libraries that are contained within the platform. We will visit attack.mitre.org and research the group known as Fancy Bear, aka APT28. And I'll show you how to import what MITRE calls the navigator layer for that group into AttackIQ. So it's a way to enhance and build your AttackIQ assessment library. You'll also see how easy it is to run an assessment on demand. Again, we want this to be very easy to use. We don't want the solution to be harder than the problem. So we want you to get off to a fast start and see results quickly with this. Additionally, you can schedule your assessments to run on a recurring basis. And it will show you an example of that known as the security controls recurring test. So this is an assessment that we built and it exercises multiple security controls. So this is the BAS portion of breach and attack simulation. With this, we have scenarios that can exercise things such as antivirus and endpoint detection and response on the host, credential access, along with network discovery. So we're able to mimic an attacker that's compromised the machine and maybe using something like Nmap to target other machines that may live on the wire or in the VLAN. You can also test your external or firewall, so as on the way out or your internet-facing firewall. You can also test for things like data exfiltration and even web content filtering. Is your web content filter configured to stop access to certain sites? Is that even working? So all of that exists within AttackIQ. You'll also see some results, reporting examples, and a MITRE-based heat map. Finally, I'll show you how to mimic an APT group, specifically an APT campaign using AttackIQ's attack flows, also known as attack graphs. So with attack flows, you can graphically emulate step-by-step the techniques that adversaries use during a post-breach incursion. So once APT28 is in the environment, do you know if you can stop them, if they execute the many techniques that they have been researched and known to use? So this is the AttackIQ web UI. Again, it's very easy to use. Everything starts in the upper left-hand corner there with that stack icon. If you select that, it'll open up the menu where you'll find the administration, configuration, reference, and testing features. Everything is available here to include documentation. You have support portal access and even a full-on API tutorial. So if folks in your environment, they are interested in doing things programmatically, we've endeavored to make this useful. So we've provided examples of syntax and results and so on. Additionally, within the platform, you have the technology stack. So I mentioned the integration manager. The integration manager supports a number of third-party security solutions. And again, this enables you to see when you run AttackIQ scenarios, if there are alerts and logs from those various security technologies, we'll be able to verify those. Within the platform, you have your scenarios. So as I mentioned, scenarios are Python scripts. And so this is how you exercise your security controls. To date, we have close to 3,800, 3796 that are available within the platform. They're all unique and they are categorized here to the left. So everything from attack tactics, also tied to MITRE ATT&CK, security controls that you may wish to exercise, variants of ransomware, and so on. If you were interested in searching, you could come up to the search bar and type in exfiltration, for example. And AttackIQ will show you all of the scenarios related to data exfiltration. So of course, data exfiltration is typically used by an insider threat. They found interesting information. They now want to send that out of the environment. And so they can use any number of protocols to do that. Now you'll note here within the AttackIQ platform that you have a number of different scenarios related to that. So we'll pick on the exfiltrate files over HTTP. If you just want the quick overview, you can select that little down caret, and you'll see we'll provide all the details on what this particular scenario will do. For more details, you can click on details there, and you'll have not only the details, but also the technologies or the security controls that will be exercised by this particular technique or scenario, along with the platforms. So those could be operating systems or cloud and so on that this could affect. You have the ability to download the source code. So because we are proponents of testing and production, and this is an open platform, we believe you should have access to that, and you do. And you can change the parameters of a scenario. So let's say this exfiltrate files over HTTP, it has 90% of what you want, but you need to make a few changes and you want to save that modified version of the scenario. You can definitely do that. So in this case, let's say you want this to be credit cards, perhaps as an PDF, and the number of entries you may wish to be 150. And you do want to encrypt, but we'll use ECB mode for AES. And this is something that you want to use all the time. So you can add this to your library by saving it, and this will be your iteration of this scenario without a stitch of scripting, and you won't harm the original source material. So just note that is possible. Additionally, within AttackIQ, you can build your own scenarios. There is a scenario development studio that's included with the platform. So your team has the ability, again, to come in and build these out. If you are interested in the framework reference, which is seeing the Python classes behind a particular type or category of scenario, you can do that too by simply entering a search and then selecting one of the scenarios or attack modules. So as you can see, the solution is designed to grow with you and you with it. So next we'll take a look at assessments. The hierarchy of AttackIQ is you have assessments. Those assessments contain folders, which we call tests, and then within those tests you have your scenarios. And so with the assessments, you can click on template library. And now you have the library of what we call assessment templates. These are also categorized. So you can look for compliance, for example. So if you're interested in this SP 853, we have broken those out by control family. Or if you're interested in testing a specific security solution, let's say you have CrowdStrike in your environment and you want to run a test or an assessment with scenarios that can exercise their baseline or base configuration, you can do that as well. So as you can see, this is CrowdStrike Falcon baseline for their recommended policy. So this is what they should do upon initial configuration. And as you see here, this is not our idea. This is based on what CrowdStrike goes in and configures for customers. So it's good to check something like that. So here, as you can see, within each of these tests, we have a number of scenarios. So this is that manual work that I mentioned a little earlier that a red team member would do using any number of tools. And some of these things they can't do because they're a little hot. So all of these things would be done if you chose to run this assessment. To run an assessment is very simple. So we'll go to all, and I'll type in security controls. And you'll see there are a number of security controls related assessments. So I'll click on security controls baseline. And as you can see here, this one will test multiple controls. So your antivirus and endpoint protection on the hosts that are running the AttackIQ agent, and then your content filter, DLP, firewall, and so on. So if you select create assessment, create new, this will take you to a setup page. So this setup page gives you the ability to come in and change the title if you wish. Additionally, when you run a scenario within an assessment, there is a default user privilege of system, but you do have the option to add additional user privileges to the platform. So you can create domain administrators or specific users that may live within the domain, and you can test from those perspectives as long as your test point, of course, has that level of privilege on it. You'll note here that all of our tests except one are ready, meaning there's nothing for you to configure. In this case, this is a firewall test. So let's open that up and look at managed scenarios. And you'll see there's an egress open ports checker. So what this scenario does is test for allowed outbound ports, for example. So if you wanted to say that a valid egress port, such as 443, is allowed, then when we run this scenario, it won't trigger anything. So if you hit apply, now that one is ready, done. And next, you simply select assets to run the scenarios and apply. Go to the lower right, hit continue, and run now, and run now. So what will happen next is within the next 60 seconds, you'll see the assets or the test points that we selected. They will both check in. They'll see that this assessment is assigned to them. They will both download all of the scenarios, run them locally, tell you what was prevented, what was detected, and what was not when it comes to the scenarios. Now note, you can schedule these assessments to run on a recurring basis, which is really good for things like change control insurance. So if you have a change control on a Friday and a lot of things are moved around, changed, and so on to facilitate the change control, let's say that change control that should have taken a half hour ends up taking 6.5 hours. You don't know if everything was put back the way it was. And so you can kind of get in front of that by scheduling this assessment to run, let's say every week on a Monday at 3 in the morning. And then you can also affix a report to that. So here's an example of what that looks like. This one is my security controls recurring test. I run it every day here at 6 in the morning. And so when it runs, I'm alerted to the fact that it did. You also can schedule notifications. So this is when you're running breach and attack simulation over time, you want to know about deviations, because the point, of course, of breach and attack simulation is to automate your testing. Well, once you automate your testing and then make the changes or mitigations, which you'll also see as we go through this demonstration, but when you make the changes to the security controls to get them up to snuff, you don't want to drop when it comes to efficacy because of some, perhaps mistake down the line. So once you're running these assessments, let's say the first time you run the assessment, perhaps you get a 50%, pass rate. You make the changes and you get it up to 85%. And you want that to be your low water mark. Well, if subsequent runs of that assessment fall below that specified threshold, you can configure AttackIQ to send you an email, a Slack, Jira, ServiceNow, AWS. There's even webhook capability here, so that if that happens, you'll receive a message like this one. So in this case, we got our low water mark to 85%. That is our accepted pass rate. And we had one that fell below that. And that's obviously because something changed in the environment. And so this is a good way to get in front of this with your breach and attack simulation testing. Now, I mentioned a little earlier, MITRE ATT&CK MITRE ATT&CK is a treasure trove of information. AttackIQ is a founding member of the Center for Threat Informed Defense. And so we do understand how MITRE ATT&CK works, how they categorize and identify specific threats. And you see an example of that with their attack matrix. So as you see here, they have across the attack chain different techniques or primary techniques, and then sub-techniques within each. So let's say you were interested in using some of this. If you're a security researcher or a practitioner and you've heard perhaps the APT28 is now they're starting to get busy out there again. Well, you can come to the groups tab here, and you'll see that MITRE has broken out a lot of well-known groups by, of course, ID and different software and techniques that they are known to use. So let's find the APT28. There we are. And they provide a background on this group, any known associated group descriptions, any aliases, and of course, the techniques that this group has been known to use, along with any software or tools. Now, this is a lot of information, and so they've broken this out for you via what's known as attack navigator layers. So if we go to that blue button and hit view, this will take you to the navigator screen. And initially, if you've never done this, it can look a little daunting, but it's pretty easy once you get the hang of it. And it's also very helpful. So you can come in and change the matrix configuration to perhaps a flat layout and then show the IDs. And now it looks a lot like the home page there. So as you can see, there's a lot of techniques that are known. So think about this, we call this breach and attack simulation. So the breach part is if APT28 gets in your environment. If they get in, then what do they do once they're in? And so how can you test or simulate or emulate that? And so here's how you can. If you click on this little download layer as JSON, you will get a JSON file of all of these techniques. And the all-important technique IDs are included in this file. Within AttackIQ, you can leverage this. So if you click on the stack icon and then select assessments and assessment templates, in the lower right-hand corner, you have an import template icon. If you click there, you can upload that template or MITRE JSON. Usually they end up in downloads. And so as we scroll through, there's our JSON, open. And if you found an interesting image that you want to include as well, you can do that. So I do have one here. And simply import template. And what AttackIQ will do is it will import this file, it'll scan it, and it will compare all of the technique IDs that are contained within this file and automatically change those to our scenarios. So if we scroll down, I'll just type in 28. And there's APT28. So you can come in, you can edit this. We'll call this Fancy Bear. And just like that, you have a custom assessment. So again, the way that this works is AttackIQ is able to take in this file. We're able to see all of the technique IDs contained within, and then we will translate those to the scenarios that match up within the AttackIQ library. And just like that, you have a custom assessment, which would have taken a long time to do manually. So next, we'll take a look at some results. So I mentioned the security controls recurring tests. This is an assessment that I run all the time, and it contains a number of different tactics, techniques, and procedures. So here, the test results are broken down by the ratio of scenarios prevented and or detected to overall scenarios that were run. On each of the widgets, you can view the tests and the security controls they were run against. From here, you can click on the view results summary. You can even view the mitigation plan here, and it's also available in other spots within the platform. So let's click on review the view results summary here under credential access. So credential access, of course, is a technique. If an attacker is successful in compromising a real machine, they're going to use any number of tools to try and grab interesting information and credentials off that machine. So this particular test has a number of those techniques. And as you can see, over time, you can gauge the efficacy of your security controls. So on the far left, you have the percentage of scenario run. So how many of a given number of scenarios were prevented by a security control? Did a security control interdict when we ran those simulations or emulations? And so that's what you see there in gold. In blue, if you have your security controls configured to talk to our integration manager, then the detected line there will show you if we saw logs and alerts. And if anything changes in the environment, it'll be right there in front of you in the form of these sort of dips that can happen. So if a firewall rule is changed or the EDR configuration is changed, and then you run the assessment and the scenarios underneath, you'll see right away if there is a notable change like that one. As you scroll down, you'll see entries for each scenario that was run, the assets that ran that scenario, and then of course the prevention and detection notifications here. So let's click on DC Sync attack. And now you're getting into how you analyze the results of your breach and attack simulation testing. So here we have the detailed findings. So note that if AttackIQ is able to see, for in this case, credentials on a test point, we are going to redact that data. So we'll treat it as secret data because it is. The activity details represent what the backend Python script or the scenario did. So here's how your attack, for example, was carried out. And then you have the mitigation recommendations. So think of this as what was done manually with a blue team. They would have to go out and research what was, what maybe even what this technique was first, and then figuring out manually how to fix it in their various platforms. So with AttackIQ, a lot of this is taken out of the hands of those folks manually. They have it right here in front of them to include step-by-step instructions if need be. So in this case, with this particular tool and this entire test, we're testing Windows, Windows OS itself, any credentials that are available within Windows, but also any browsers that are running on Windows. You also have the detection details available. So these detection details will show you if there are any logs from a given platform or security control, along with observable details. So think of observable details as almost like IOCs, but it's a little more granular than that. And so we have the sticks format available to you. And next, we'll take a look at a detailed report. So within AttackIQ, there are a number of report options to you available. You have detailed reports or technical reports. You have summary reports, perhaps for executives and leadership. We even have reports for differentials between runs of assessments, and of course, MITRE ATT&CK themed reports. This one is the security assessment detailed report. So when you're running your breach and attack simulation, one of the things that you want to be able to do is provide leadership with hard answers to questions that they get asked. And today, they likely don't have the answer to those questions. So if someone in a meeting were to say, hey, can we stop APT 28 if they actually got in here? They may not be able to answer that because typically security controls are not exercised until an attacker does it. But with this, you now have the ability to provide them brass tacks information. And so you have a glossary of terms, the overall status of this particular assessment, along with the all-important report card, which we call the test overview. Within this, you'll have the tests that were run, the scenarios, the technologies that were exercised, and then your prevention and detection numbers. So of course, some of these percentages are better than others. Green is good, red is not quite as good. And the idea, of course, is for the blue team to take the recommendations when it comes to mitigation and then make those changes and run the assessment again. And hopefully your numbers get better. Over time, you can also see how you are performing when it comes to or compared with the MITRE ATT&CK matrix. This is what we call the heat map. This is available within the platform. And so we're able to show you when it comes to the assessments that you've run, and I have 101 that I'm looking at here. And so you see across the chain of attack here, how you're doing. You can also hover over the results. So when it comes to something like discovery, you see there's a lot of red there. That tells you that if someone were to run something like an Nmap, for example, in the environment, chances are they would be successful. Now, last thing we'll show you today has to do with attack graphs. Here's a recent post that's available on AttackIQ.com regarding how to emulate APT28 or Fancy Bear using what's known as attack flows. So of course, we also keep an eye on US CERT alerts, and we'll post when we see things there that may impact our customer base in the world at large. And so this one was an interesting one. And so we've built out and included in the platform to answer this, what's known as an attack graph. And so when it comes to groups like APT28, they use a series of steps or tactics. To emulate that, AttackIQ provides you with an anatomic testing process. And we call this, again, attack flows or attack graphs, which executes the scenarios in a little different way. So we do this, in this case, in a series and as a single process. So each one of these nodes or steps represents a step in APT28's ZebraC campaign in this case. Because each node is underpinned by a scenario, you can click on it and kind of learn about the scenario underneath. The purple star is the starting point. You can also initiate delay if you wish to make things more true to life. And if a scenario underneath needs configuration, you can do that here as well. Now, the attack graphs are presented from the defender's perspective, or the perspective of the security controls that will be exercised from the assets that you're running them on. The red link in between steps says, take the next step if the scenario is not prevented by some security control. So it could be firewall, it could be antivirus, it could be EDR. The green line shows the assessment, or allows the assessment to take the next step, even if the scenario is prevented. And as you note, a green check nodule, as you see here, that will end the attack graph. So if we get this far, but we are stopped by some security control, that effectively ends the test, and that tells you how far theoretically APT28 could have gotten in the environment. Now, attack graphs are very easy to build, and because of that, as you can see here, you can build very complex and involved test trees. We do provide a number of these with the platform, but if you wanted to add another step, it's as simple as clicking there on that plus, creating steps, and then coming in and either via tag or description, finding another scenario to add to it and connecting them up. And this would have taken us quite a while in Python to do. So we invite you to explore the AttackIQ Academy online. This is our way of giving back, and it's totally free for partners, prospects, students, customers. The Academy offers over 30 high-quality courses covering everything from MITRE ATT&CK to breach and attack simulation, where you see here, this is foundations of breach and attack simulation. So this course, and along with the instructor, the course details. So if you wish, you can just go to academy.attackiq.com and register. And when you complete these courses, you can also earn CPE credits and Credly badges. And for more information, please visit us at attackiq.com or contact us at info@attackiq.com. You can also register to receive a free download of our Breach and Attack Simulation 101 guide. This is a very helpful book with hints, tips, tricks, and hopefully after reading the guide, you'll walk away with some actionable insights and practical ways to implement a bad strategy to maximize your cybersecurity effectiveness. We hope that you enjoyed this session and thank you for your time. At this time, I'll turn it back over to Madison and see if we have any questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everybody. It looks like we don't have any questions at this moment, but again, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us or personally reach out to Jim. Thank you so much again, everyone, for joining today. We hope to see you on a live demo again in the near future. Have a good one.